here. We finally got it framed, got it up. Thank you to Nathan for helping me. I came in yesterday and he and I did the logistics on it and finished it out this morning. We have a synopsis, a little history of the rug piece there beside it. We can probably email that to everybody as well so you can kind of learn it a little bit so you won't have to read it when you come in. Does that sound like a good plan? Okay. We also want to make everybody aware of, I know everybody probably knows all the hinges have been replaced and the casters. So that's so exciting. We hung the picture that Peter had given to us of the greenhouse in the pub room. Nathan, we talked to Nathan and he said, oh yeah, we can get those lights fixed in that cupboard. 152 lights, all brand new lights. The chess piece, if you noticed, we had been missing a chess piece. So we had a remarkable person here at the Arboretum that took a cast of it and made one, and I don't think you can tell the difference. So we now have a complete chess set. So we're just so excited. We've done some other little things. If you noticed some of the clear plastic for the frames, I've gone back and replaced those. And just if everybody, an FYI, if you're looking for those kind of things, don't go to Michael's. Don't go to Office Depot. Go to the Dollar Tree. They're better, they're sturdier, and they're only $1. See, I'm a shopper. I'm spending your money wisely.
Thank you.
Let's see, where is Mr. Goodchild? Is he still? Is he talking to Nathan?
Can you put a copy of that Pastor Rugg and leave it in the dozer?
Of course. Yeah, we can do that. If you'll make a note of that for me, wherever you are. Veronica. Okay. You saw the pictures out and talking about the work day we've got. So I'm going to call the meeting to order, and we're now down to business for a few minutes. Peter Goodchild, who came to us last year and spoke to us and showed us about the furniture and had been part of the restoration, the tabletop in the dining room, the partners' chairs, the tables, some of the chairs in the dining room, and has done those, graciously offered to come back and help us with a work day, which we have scheduled for next Monday, the 20th. We've put it out on Volgistics in 2-hour shifts, and I told him that, and he said, oh yeah, I'll work them to death, so. But we just wanted to reiterate, and I had invited him to come and meet the family because we want the family to know that we are so excited about trying to keep this furniture in good shape and take care of it, this precious, wonderful place that we have here. And we're so grateful to everybody that volunteers and that everybody that takes the effort to keep it that way. Would you like to say a little thing?
Yeah, come down next Monday and get your hands dirty. We'll put some gloves on so they don't get too bad. We just whack some furniture. It's not really that big a deal. It's a confidence thing. Once you all know what you're doing and why you're doing it, it's pretty simple. We just got to make sure we don't get it on the walls and the carpets. Other than that, it'll be good. Come on out and whack some furniture. Okay?
All right. Thank you.
That is a London accent.
Very British. But tell the story of coming to Texas. You have to tell the family.
Well, wait a minute, which one?
The one you can't tell about getting off the plane.
Oh yeah, I got here in August, right? Yeah, I got in August because in Europe you want your summer holidays in August because the sun shines, you know. So okay, go to Texas, go there anyway. So you know we've got these doors in the airport that open up. Well, when the doors opened up, and it was one of these 110 days, and it was like an oven, and I thought I died and gone to heaven. And these were wonderful. He loved it. So there we are.
So he's now a born-again Texan, if you will.
I'll have my cowboy boots on next Monday. I won't have my suit on. There you go.
And your goat ranch?
Yeah, I won't bring the goats with me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're excited. We have converted him to being a Texan.
I'm a Texan.
All right. Thank you so much for coming.
Accent. Oh, you're more than welcome.
Please find a seat. Okay. All right. Are we back on? This thing is we need a new microphone, Sean. All right. As you can tell, we have some family members here today. It's a very special day with Miss Virginia coming back and talking to us. We're so excited. It's very rare that we get to have all of the Maxon children here together, and they're excited because they got to have a family reunion, as well as their niece and some cousins are here. So without much further ado, we don't want to take any more of Virginia's time than we have to, because we want to hear from her, and then we'll get back down to business, folks. Okay, Susan, if you will come and introduce our speaker.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see you all here, the day before Valentine's Day. It's like we're going to feel the love with this family group we've got. So let me introduce who our special guests are, because there's quite a few. Remember Peter? We see him regularly. So we have Peter Maxon, sisters Virginia we're going to hear from, and Mary, who you've heard from before. I didn't have the pleasure. I wasn't a docent. And then we have their niece, Peggy DeGollier Maxon. And next to her, we have cousin Mickey Snell on Everett DeGollier's side of the family, and her husband Peter. And then a good friend of Virginia's here, Carol Holden, whose husband John, I believe, is on the board of the Arboretum. So let's welcome them. And I'm not going to take credit for this introduction because Peter wrote it. It's got an age reference in it. I asked if that was all right. Some of us are more sensitive than others about that. So Virginia was born in 1942 and has several memories of the house that go back maybe into the 40s and definitely early 50s. She graduated from Hockaday, went to Sophie Newcomb in New Orleans and Texas Tech. She had her debut at this home, and Bertie gave her a tea at the house. It was a fall debut. In 1964, she married a Scotsman, Jock Buchanan Smith, and in '69 they moved to Canada. They live in Vancouver, and she's come from there to see us today. So they're still living in Canada, and she's missing the snowstorm right now. She's here. And we're happy to have her. So without any further ado, please come on up and share your memories of your grandmother with us.
Thank you, Susan. I hope everybody can hear, because I don't have a very loud voice if I don't have a microphone. Just one little thing. I live near Toronto in Ontario, not Vancouver. So way other end of the country, but they're still having a snowstorm, and I was really happy to get away yesterday, even though it took us 2 hours to drive what would normally be about a 45-minute drive. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really pleased to be here. I can't tell you how much it means to all of our family to know that you're here and you're looking after the house with such care and such love that it makes it a very special thing for us. So I'm just going to share a few of my memories. They may be repeats. I don't know. Peter is the one that seems to have the longest memories of everybody that he's imparted to you. I come from a long line of Virginias. My great-grandmother was Emma Virginia. My grandmother was Nell Virginia. My mother was Nell Virginia. I'm Virginia Lee. My daughter is Rachel Virginia. And her daughter is Claire Virginia. So that's 6 generations, I think, of Virginias. But we're going to concentrate about Nell Virginia the first. She was just the most wonderful grandmother a person could ever want. She was not very tall in stature. She had fair hair, fair skin. I mean, we just knew her when she had silver hair. But I think as a young woman, she had lovely sort of strawberry blonde hair. She had a rather ample figure. Not, she was certainly not a slim woman by any stretch. She was energetic. She was smart. She was good-humored. She was disciplined. She loved children. She had high standards. These are the attributes that came to my mind when I was thinking of her. We, of course, knew her as Birdie. Now, Peter will probably give you the etymology of that. I think Buntelope bird somehow came into it, didn't it, Peter?
And Burdenagel.
Burdenagel. I never heard Burdenagel. Our family was a great family for nicknames. So, but she was Birdie, and Granddaddy was, well, they were Mipsy and Pipsy too, weren't they? I've forgotten about that. She was the product of a Victorian upbringing. She was the oldest child. Her parents, I mean, you got to sort of think back. And about 3 years ago, I went to a production of the musical Oklahoma. And I came away and I realized, well, that was probably the same time that Birdie and Granddaddy were meeting one another. They were going to university. Oklahoma was a pretty new state back in those days. And her parents, I think, must have been very enlightened to bring their 5 children, Peter?
6 and a half sibling too.
6 and a half, okay, 6 and a half to move to Norman, Oklahoma, so that their children could get university educations. And Birdie certainly did that. She graduated, I think, at age 19, and with a double major, which by today's standards was pretty remarkable, but by those standards, I think must have been extremely remarkable. She was closest in age with her and in friendship with her sister Pearl, who we got to know because we lived in Stillwater, Oklahoma for 4 years after I was married. And so we went to Tulsa to visit Aunt Pearl, and Aunt Pearl was so much like Birdie. It wasn't true, except she was maybe just a little bit more liberal. Not that Birdie was prudish, but she was she had been brought up in the Victorian ages. But they did travel together, and they enjoyed one another's company. Memories of Birdie specifically, as I said, she was a woman of great energy and enthusiasm for her garden, her family, and I think in particular her grandchildren. She was involved in causes such as Planned Parenthood back in the days when it was first starting up. She kept a beautiful house. Everything in it was lovely and reflected the period of the 30s, the 40s, whenever it was that she was keeping the house. She collected antiques appropriate to the style of house in which she lived. Peter and Peggy and I were lucky enough this last fall to visit Parham Hall in England, and it was the home of one of Lord Cowdrey's sons. And Peter says that Mother, as a little girl, had gone there and ran down this long hall that we got to see. So that was sort of fun. But when you looked around at the beautiful Elizabethan furniture, you could see how this must have really stuck in the mind of little Nell from Norman, that she had the presence of mind and the good taste to be able to come back and translate these things into her homes. She had a lovely sort of as Peter calls, a Jacobean home in Montclair, New Jersey. So this heavy English furniture, this heavy oak stuff was very appropriate for that. And then it also translated quite well when they moved down to Texas and built a Spanish house too. The staff in the house, I know Peter's talked about, but it was, she lived in an era in which the household help was the norm for many people of middle to upper class households. There was the gardeners. She had 2 gardeners, Lee and Ernest, who we always loved because they were always so jolly and friendly. Bertha was the most memorable cook. Bertha was a great character. Lang was the butler chauffeur, and his wife Mamie, and latterly Florence, were housemaids. And in the 50s, it was customary for house staff to work on Sundays, at least a sort of generous half day. And then they had Thursday nights off. So we would come here on Sundays for Sunday meals, and it was always a formal meal set in the dining room. With beautiful linens, and she used service plates and antique silver, and the first course would be served on the service plate, and that would be whisked away, and then we had the main course. And the main course was the cooking was, I would say, sort of English influence, you know, like a joint of a roast beef or a leg of lamb or that sort of thing. She wasn't into too much experimenting with the cooking, though she did clip recipes from the newspapers, and of course she never cooked them herself, mind you. But she knew how to direct Bertha, or whoever was the cook at the time, to produce a beautiful meal. Her daughters were much more experimental and more into the haute cuisine than Bertie ever was. Bertie just liked to serve good food. When we came here for meals, we would have a drink served here in the library. And I remember so well, she had a antique silver lamp. Is it there? What have I done? Touched it. No? Okay. Not touch it again. A antique silver biscuit box, which was sort of a cylindrical silver box with a lid that swung open, and it was always filled with salted pecans, buttered roasted pecans. So when I saw the pecans over there, it made me think of them. And then mixed drinks for those that would have them. And then Bertie always had only 1 glass of sherry, but I swear to God, it was the biggest glass. But she only had 1 glass of sherry. So then we would have our meals, and let me think what else.
Devitas.
Oh yeah, well I haven't got there yet, Peter. After the main course, the finger bowls came out, and we just assumed that was the way people ate, you know. I mean, we didn't know any better, so that was, and always with a scented geranium leaf in the bowl. I remember that. And then the dessert, and which was usually a pie or something like that. At Christmas, she'd serve mincemeat pie, which we all eschewed, or pumpkin pie. And she's the only woman I've ever known that served pumpkin pie with a blob of whipped cream and then a blob of sort of sour cherry jam on top of it. And it was lovely. The sourness of the cherry sort of spun off the sweet pumpkin. And then after dinner, everybody came back in here, and there was a big, long sofa there, and then a low table. I don't know if do they have that table, Peter?
No, opium.
Yes, it was a low, beautiful, I think mahogany table, quite oriental looking. And much to Bertie's horror, she learned it was really an opium table. But it made a lovely coffee table.
There was a story about that. One of my aunts brought an oboe by and said, "Look at Mother's opium table." And he said, "Hell, the last time I was here, it was hard to get a drink."
Well, Lang would come in with a big silver tray with the after-dinner coffee, the silver coffee jug and the cream and the sugar cubes and little cobalt blue demi-tasse cups and saucers with gold trims and wonderful spoons that had they had little sort of like a pencil lead kind of handle with a semi-precious stone at the end. Do you remember those? Oh, really? Well, anyhow, as a child, I remember that, and I remember she would always give us some. And of course, we couldn't really have coffee, but we got, I think it was about half and half coffee and cream, and then with lots of sugar cubes. We thought it was great. They were very, very generous about having us over to even stay when it got really hot, because they had one of the early air conditionings in the state, I think. I remember one time she was away and we were invited to come and stay for the week, and I proceeded to spill a bottle of ink on the carpet. Mother was not pleased. When the McGee cousins came to town, that was always fun, because we were the sort of closest in age to them. And I remember very well, you know that little table you have in the front, I thought it was a meat safe. Somebody mentioned a rabbit cage. I don't know what it was. But it made a great place to play lions and tigers. When you were 3 years old, somebody could get stuffed in there and we could lock them in. I think it was young George McGee that got stuck in there. When they came to town, Bertie and Granddaddy would have a big garden party for them out in the front here, and it would sort of spill around the back with great, I don't know, there were big bars set up that were tall. I remember they were tall, and they put white cloths over them. And this was, you know, for a couple of hundred people, I guess, coming to these parties. And as children, we would be here, but of course we were not supposed to be seen or heard. So we could kind of sneak around and see the beautiful dresses the ladies were wearing, things like that. Every spring, Bertie would let me invite my whole class from Hockaday to come and play in the garden and to enjoy lemonade and cookies and ice cream. Carol remembers having the ice cream in particular. And somehow play in the garden evolved into war games. So there were maybe 45 little green and white clad girls running through the flower beds and across the lawns, and I never heard any complaints about it. Maybe Mother did, but I never did. And so I think she really enjoyed just having us come. And of course, in those days, there weren't nearly the plantations of flower beds that there are now. So it was a much wider open area, and you could run and play as much as you wanted. getting to spend the night with Bertie was a special treat, because then as a grandchild, you were sort of given special privileges. You know, it was, you were the only one. And we would sit outside on the veranda here, the porch, what do you call that? The portal. And, or loggia, yeah. Anyhow, you know what I'm talking about. The porch. And then we would have, if it was a nice night, we would have our dinner out there served. She had nice glass top tables or a glass top table, and we would sit out there and have our dinner. And again, if it was a nice day, for breakfast, we'd sit on the other side of the house, right in that little sort of area between the kitchen and the breakfast room. But if we're just eating here with just us, we never sat at the big table. We just ate our meals in the breakfast room. Except I understand that when Peggy's dad was little, he came over to spend the night, but he must have been quite small. And Bertie said she went out, she couldn't find him anywhere, but she knew that he was going to have dinner, you know, and he knew he was going to have dinner. And she found him sitting at the end of this very long table, all by himself, just waiting for dinner. Dinner, which was probably scrambled eggs, knowing Bertie. That was about the extent of her cookery. Breakfasts, particularly Sunday breakfasts, were waffles and maple syrup, which we loved, and the with melted butter, which was a treat, and it was always served in a little silver pipkin, and the syrup was in a sort of Revereware type, or not Revereware, but a Revere jug that had a lid on it. Remember that, Peter? And so that was a special time. They're just, you know, there's so many memories that I hold dear. Trips, she took all of her grandchildren up to California on a trip, each one individually, when they, well, I don't know if she got all the way down to the youngest ones, but. Sorry, Mary. The older ones she took. Much older. I don't know how you missed that, because you are my older sister. I remember Mother rushing around our house every time she knew Bertie was coming to quick water the plants, deadhead the flowers, the geraniums that were sitting in the window, Peter, remember, on Northwest Highway? Bertie's driving was quite extraordinary. She, I think the best line was when she got pulled over by the policeman, was telling the policeman, "Young man, you should be chasing those dump trucks. They're a hazard on the road." Latterly, when the staff stopped serving Sunday lunches, we went to Bracalo to have lunch there, or the Dallas Country Club. No, we went to Bracalo too. I remember Bertie walking around the gardens with us. She just, you know, she loved her garden, and we would have a march through the garden, and she'd deadhead anything she thought looked like it needed it, and talk to Lee and Ernest. She always had flowers around the house. I remember particularly great bowls of iris on the piano. She had a lovely sort of silver trumpet vase that was filled with iris from the iris beds, and she'd even had so many irises she'd bring them over to Mother's. Do you remember, Peter?